Good morning, majors. So today we're going to look at Unit 7, Day 3, and we're going to look at trigonometric ratios. These two are your warm-up questions. Try them out. So this is the definition of trigonometry and trigonometric ratios. I encourage you to pause the video and read them to yourselves. This is a theta. The symbol is called theta, and we use that to tell us where the reference angle is. So my first step, I say, is to circle my reference angle. And we know where it is because that's where the theta is going to be. So it looks like the A is my reference angle. So my angle A is the angle that we're talking about. This is going to be the angle that we're going to base everything off of. And we're going to find, my second step is to label my sides. So the side opposite of theta, or angle A, is little a. So I'm going to write opposite. The side that is the hypotenuse, you guys should know this by now. I'm going to try to always make it red. It is opposite this 90-degree angle. So my hypotenuse is C, right? Hypotenuse. And then the other side, I always say the other side, is going to be my adjacent side. Do you guys see that B touches angle A or theta? It touches my angle, so that is going to be my adjacent side. So usually I just write OPP for opposite, HYP for hypotenuse, and ADJ for adjacent. Now these are very important. So the hypotenuse is C. The side opposite of theta, the opposite side is A, little a. And then the side adjacent, the one next to, adjacent means next to, is B. Do you guys see the B down here? It's opposite angle B. So the adjacent to A is B. All right, now we have three trigonometric functions, okay? And their names are sine, cosine, and tangent. And these are their names spelled out, but we don't ever spell them out. The abbreviation for sine is SIN, and it's always sine of theta, or sine of the angle, sine of A. We can have sine of A as long as it's sine of the angle. If they tell us what angle this is, like if it's 30, it'll be sine of 30. So sine of the angle. Cosine, we use cos, C-O-S for cosine. You'll never really see it as cosine like this. We just use C-O-S of theta, of the angle. And then tangent, we use T-A-N for tangent of theta, okay? Now let's go over the ratio. They have specific ratios. Sine is always the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Now let's look at theta, at this theta, at angle A. The opposite side in this case is A, little a, over the hypotenuse is C. You guys can see that up here also. All right, cosine. Cosine is always the adjacent side to the angle, ADJ for adjacent, over the hypotenuse again. And the adjacent side in this case is B, and the hypotenuse again is C. The tangent is always the opposite side, OPP for opposite, over the adjacent. So it's actually the same as sine over cosine. Opposite side in this case is A, and the adjacent side in this case is B. Okay, these are very, very, very important. These are things that you're going to have to remember. But we found an easy way to remember this. It's called SOHCAHTOA. So, S-O-H, Ka, C-A-H, TOA, T-O-A. And what it stands for is sine is opposite over hypotenuse, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent, opposite over adjacent. Alrighty guys, I'm going to show you how to use this. Go ahead and flip your paper over. I'm going to remind you that we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. So write it on the very top. So, S-O-H, Ka, C-A-H, SOHCAHTOA. T-O-A. SOHCAHTOA. All right, so let me just move this. Let's first fill this out. Example 1. Name the following sides. What is the hypotenuse of my triangle? So remember, I'm always going to try to make my hypotenuse red. And it looks like, since it's the only one that's opposite that 90-degree angle, 17 is my hypotenuse. So this is going to be red. So the hypotenuse of QRP, we can either say is QR, because those are the end points, or we can say is 17. I don't know what they're asking us. Maybe QR. Maybe they actually want Q to R with a line above it. That's my hypotenuse. What is the leg opposite Q? So if Q is my reference angle, what is the leg opposite to that? That's 8. Or you can say RP. Doesn't matter. What is the leg opposite to R? So if this is my angle R, do you guys see that this side and this side both touch my angle R? The side that's opposite it is 15, or QP. I want you guys to try these. Oh no, let's do one. The leg adjacent to Q is the one that's touching Q. That's not the hypotenuse. 17 is touching Q, but it is a hypotenuse, so that's not going to be adjacent. My adjacent side is going to be 15. And I want you guys to try to find the adjacent to R. Help me out. Find the following trig ratios. So it says sine, cosine, and tangent of Q. I'll do that one, and then you guys can try R. So my first step is to label or circle my reference angle. They're asking me sine of Q first. So I'm going to use Q first. Make sure you're doing this in like a color pencil so you can erase it and change your reference angle to this one. Now, my second step is to label my triangle. The side opposite to Q is 8. This one is opposite, right? OPP next to it. Make sure it's in pencil because we're going to erase it when we get to R. The hypotenuse is 17, right? HYP for hypotenuse. And then the adjacent side to Q, the one that's touching it, is 15. That's adjacent. ADJ. All right, guys. Now let's fill this in. Remember, sine is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. My opposite side to Q, my opposite one is 8. Over my hypotenuse is 17. Now let's try cosine of Q. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So my adjacent to Q, we already wrote that in, is 15. Divided by my hypotenuse, which is also 17 again. And now tangent is the only one that doesn't use the hypotenuse. It is the opposite side over adjacent side. My opposite is 8. And my adjacent is 15. Alright guys, I want you guys to try to do sine of R. We'll have more practice of this, sine, cosine, and tangent of R. We'll have more practice in class. So they want our ratios without a calculator. Let's try this. We want sine of 30, cosine of 60, tangent of 60. Let's try sine of 30 first. First, we're going to add these angles up, 90 and 30, and subtract that from 180. You're going to get 60 for sure. Remember, this is one of our special triangles, 30, 60, 90. We learned this last notes. So if they were missing a side, we could figure it out with the ratios. And we want sine of 30. So my first step is to circle my reference angle, which is 30. So I'm going to circle this angle right here. My second step is to label my sides. My opposite side is the one that doesn't touch 30. This is my opposite side. And my hypotenuse is the biggest one. It's the one that's opposite the 90-degree angles. This is my hypotenuse. And my adjacent side is going to be the other one, okay? The only one left. And I'm going to write ADJ. So remember, we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. And this tells us what ratio or what side lengths we need. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we're looking at the 30-degree angle. The opposite side, we wrote it in there already, is 4 over the hypotenuse is 8. Can you guys simplify that for me? What is 4 over 8? That's the same as 1/2. Alright, now let's try cosine. But do you guys see they changed the reference angle? What is cosine of 60 degrees, not 30 degrees? So in this case, I'm going to have to erase my reference angle, because that's not my reference angle, and erase your side lengths. Now, I'm going to follow the same steps. My first step is to circle my reference angle. Now they're talking about 60. My second step is to label my sides. Now, this side is going to be my opposite side, and then 4 is now going to be my adjacent side, right? Because that's the side that's touching the 60. The hypotenuse is always going to stay the same. Remember, your reference angle can never be 90. We can never use 90 as my reference angle. It has to be one of the two smaller angles, the acute angles. All right, guys. So I need help right now. I need cosine of 60. So I circle my reference angle. I label my sides. I need to know what ratio cosine is. Cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So my adjacent side is 4 over my hypotenuse is 8. Ooh. Do you guys see that these are the same things? So sine of one angle is equal to cosine of the other angle. Okay, so maybe we can write something like that, because that'll be on your test. Tangent of 60. I already have my reference angle circled. I already have my sides labeled. I don't have to erase it. They're using the same reference angle. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So my opposite I have is 4 square root of 3. And my adjacent is 4. You can see that these 4's will cancel. They both don't have a square root, so we can divide them. 4 over 4 is 1. That's just a square root of 3. Alright guys, try this one with your calculator. If you need help, just ask me when we get to class on how to plug that into the calculator. Which trig ratio would you use to find x? So they're not really asking us to do much except for what is the trig ratio. So I'm going to write down my trig ratios. I'm going to show you guys how to do this in the calculator. But first I'm going to finish this. Maybe this is it. Okay. So which trig ratio would you use to find x? My first step is to circle my reference angle. It has to be one of the two smaller angles. It cannot be the 90 degrees. My second step is to label my sides. X is the side opposite, and 5 is the hypotenuse. Now, I didn't label this side because there's no number and there's no x there. So let's write down SOHCAHTOA. SOHCAHTOA. And which trig function uses the opposite and hypotenuse? Tangent doesn't have a hypotenuse. Cosine has adjacent and hypotenuse. There's no adjacent side here. It doesn't help me. So it has to be sine. Sine uses the opposite side and the hypotenuse. Let's try this one. Again, we have 22 as our reference angle. Circle your reference angle and label your sides. This is your opposite side, so we don't have a number here or a variable here, so I'm not going to use that. The 8 is on my hypotenuse, and the x is my adjacent side. So which trig function uses adjacent and hypotenuse, or hypotenuse and adjacent? The only one is cosine, uses adjacent over hypotenuse. So this would look like cosine of 22 degrees equals adjacent comes first over hypotenuse. All right. It looks like I'm running out of space. I'm going to do the last one with you. I'm going to circle my reference angle and label my sides. I have my opposite side and my hypotenuse. So which one uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine of what degrees? 22 equals, opposite side comes first because O is first, so opposite side is always on top, and then the hypotenuse is on the bottom. This is what it would look like, and we would usually just solve for x. Let me just go back and do this one. Sine of 22 equals opposite first, and then hypotenuse on the bottom, okay? Find the lengths of T and R. I am going to help you solve this one. Find the lengths of T and R. My first step is to circle my reference angle. My second step is to label my sides. The T is on my opposite side, and the one opposite my 90-degree angle is R, so that's my hypotenuse. So that makes 4 my adjacent side. I hope you guys can do that by yourself now. Now, I need to solve for only one variable at a time. So let's solve for T. I can't use the hypotenuse because that's another variable, so I've got to use 4. Which trig function would I use if I need the opposite side and the adjacent side? Let's look up here. Opposite and adjacent, no. Opposite and adjacent, no. Opposite and adjacent, yes. It has to be tangent. That's how I figure out which one I'm going to use first. Tangent of 36 degrees equals, the tangent says opposite comes first. So that means T comes first, or my variable, divided by 4, the adjacent side. Now, I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Whatever is our trig function, that could be over 1. I'm just going to cross multiply. 1 times T is T. 4 times tangent of 36 is 4 tangent of 36. Now we can plug this into the calculator. So I'm going to get my calculator out, and I need 4 tangent of 36. So make sure your mode is in degrees. It's very, very important. If it's not, go down 2, go to the right once, and press enter. And then you can go second quit to clear it, or to go back. Now I'm going to plug it in like this. Let me see if you can view it a little bit bigger. So I need 4 tangent of 36, which means 4 times tangent, this is tangent, sine, cosine, tangent, and then 36, and your parentheses, and then press enter. Now remember, you can never multiply 4 times 36. It's not tangent times 36, it's tangent of 36 degrees. So that's not something we're ever going to be able to multiply by another number like the 4, okay? Now, this one, I have to round it then. I can't do anything else. It's not a 30, 60, 90, or 45, 45, 90, so I'm not going to be expected to know that. I'm just going to write down what the calculator says, maybe to like 2 or 3 decimals. It looks like it's about 2.91, right? 2.91. Now, I can use the same reference angle to find R. I don't want to use the opposite side because I know it, but it's still a decimal. So I know T. I'm trying to find R this time. I can use the Pythagorean theorem to find R, but I can also use trig. Let's find out which trig function I need to use. I have the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So which trig function uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Nope, not sine. Adjacent and hypotenuse. Yes, cosine. So I'm going to use this area right here. Cosine of 36 degrees equals, what comes first? The adjacent side, which is 4, over the hypotenuse, which is R. Okay? Now, we're always going to put this over 1, this side over 1, but when we're cross multiplying and the variable is in the denominator, it's going to look a little different. 1 times 4 is 4. R times cosine of 36 is just R times cosine of 36. I'm trying to solve for R, so I'm always going to have to, if my R is the denominator, I'm going to have to divide by the trig function, which is cosine of 36. R equals 4 divided by cosine of 36. I don't know what that is, but that's what my calculator is for. This is not something I'm ever going to remember. I'm ever going to be able to expected to know. 4 divided by, make sure you guys don't multiply or you don't just put cosine next to it. We need 4 divided by cosine of 36. So I need divided by, and then this is cosine, 36 degrees, enter. 4.94. Alright guys, I want you to try example 5 on your own. And if you have any questions, please come to class prepared to ask questions. Have a great night.